Welcome to the 3 Life Lessons podcast, where I, Rob Hubbard, talk to renowned figures from learning and development to uncover the secrets to their success and find out what makes them tick. Remember to like, subscribe and follow to ensure that you never miss an episode. So, David, we've known each other for many years, and I've always really enjoyed bumping into you at events and having our kind of regular chats that we do, because I've always felt there's really good alignment between us, not just kind of work-wise, but outside of work as well. So you've got one of my favourite job titles as Chief Insights Officer at Fosway Group, which I think is just absolutely brilliant. So, as well as being one of the leading analysts and thought leaders on education and talent technologies globally, you're also really environmentally minded. You're a keen mountain biker. You're a butterfly chaser as well. So this combination of, technical expertise and comfort with digital combined with a deep love of nature, I think should lead to some really interesting life lessons. So David Perring, welcome.
Thanks, Rob. No, likewise. I always find it a deep joy when I catch up with you, and it's something that I miss when we haven't caught up for a while. So Thank you for having me on today.
Yeah. Happens less often these days, doesn't it? But brilliant. All right, so first question then, David, is if you could tell the audience about your current role and what was the route that you've taken to get there, please.
So I am Chief Insights Officer at Fosway Group, previously Director of Research. That's a bit of creativity maybe on my part, and being with Fosway for now 14 years. It's something that quite a long time, isn't it? I never expected to be here that long. But I think that's one of those consequences of being in the flow. When you're stretched and challenged and interested, you don't notice the time disappears. Yeah. And it's gone very quickly.
Yeah, it's a good sign.
But and what my role involves is really, I'd say, the perfect point of standing on the fence around watching what suppliers are doing in terms of what innovation they're bringing to the marketplace and what success they're having with clients and the difference they're making, but also watching buyers and what they do. So corporates and corporate organisations, leaders of learning and talent organisations, how they're approaching the challenges within their business and how they're embracing technology and strategies to make them successful. And it's always just fascinating to sort of watch that convergence in a way of who's getting things right, who could be using any supplier and still be hitting a home run because they're just so amazing at facilitating change in organisations and getting onto the real pulse and into the DNA of the organisation. So what they do really makes things happen. And then on the flip side, seeing people embrace technologies and new approaches, sometimes seeing it fail, but more often than not, seeing it thrive, enable them to do new things, and trying to sort of understand what is really making a difference, what isn't, and really just listening to where the industry is going, but also from a point of view of being quite opinionated about keeping it human, being kind, being focused on what really drives value, and those things, and sort of using that lens of, are we doing the right things? And sometimes we're just doing things because we can do them. So I'm very lucky in my role. Don't have the level of responsibilities that people used to have, or used to have maybe in organisations. So I'm very lucky. But my route to getting there was, I worked as head of learning solutions and technologies at Virgin Media, and we were involved in innovating learning. So, and the reason I got that job was, at the time when I was working in telecoms and NTL, I just happened to go to our HR director at the time that e-learning was sort of blossoming and blooming in organisations, and said, we're a telecoms company, we're a technology company, surely we should be using tech to help us deliver better learning to our people. And she said, set up a skunk project, and off I went. And everything just snowballed on from there on in. I went from being a learning business partner in telecoms to being the head of a e-learning manager, then became head of blended learning, and then as NTL hoovered up more and more organisations, became the head of Learning Solutions Technologies. But I suppose my background has always been in learning and development and people. So I trained to be a teacher. I was a trainer in local government for many years, introducing technology, new things called PCs. Always riding the wave.
Yeah.
And then worked in telecoms, just training people how to use computers, which was, again, computer systems, then just branched out into loads of things to do with manager development, process development, and then touching everything from health and safety through to product training programs and system convergence when we went through things with Virgin Media as Head of Learning Solutions and Technologies. And just had a great team doing really interesting stuff, creating scenarios. So I've sort of worked my way from being a teacher into being a training practitioner, into being somebody who's focused on talent, into then commentating and hopefully encouraging people to do the right thing with their strategies today.
Yeah. I liked your use of the word kind. You know, that's not often a word that you hear in conversations about technology, but really it should be there, shouldn't it? You know, that kind of human-centeredness. I love that.
I don't know. I think when I think about what it is, what we all talk about sort of human-centered design, but I think we always miss out the kind part when we talk about humankind. I think there is that sort of kind as being a type, but also I think there's a stronger meaning in there. Actually, we're at our best when we're at our kindest, and we don't necessarily see enough of that in the world today.
Yeah, absolutely. A much undervalued attribute. Yeah. So, David, let's move on to your first life lesson. What would you like to share?
I think it comes back in terms of what got me here today is innovation. I think there's something that if you don't own innovation in what you do at work, then that innovation will own you. And I think you really have to lead its best adoption to make sure that we leave the world in a better place than when we inherited it. And sadly, maybe for the largest part of my life on this planet, the world isn't a better place than when I was born into it. So thinking about climate change, impact of loss of wildlife and things like that. This is not necessarily true, but it doesn't stop us thinking about how we strive for that. So I think there is something about looking for the new, looking for things that may lead to better options and experimenting. I think that's partly my character, is to want to experiment and play. I like playing. I am playful. So if I'm not playing and laughing, then I'm probably not having fun and I'm not enjoying work. So I think those things are wrapped together for me. And that's something I probably think about all the time. I've never wanted to do what people have done before. Maybe that's youngest child syndrome. I don't know. But
That sounds
that's my first lesson.
I like doing different things. Yeah, that's really interesting. So I like doing different things all the time and trying new things. And I'm the youngest child as well. But yeah, so what you've described there is kind of leaning into the innovation, kind of approaching it in a playful manner. And so is there, I guess you must be quite curious about things. That tends to sort of drive in people who are naturally curious tend to be in roles where they focus on innovation.
Yeah, maybe. I'm not sure if I call it curiosity. Maybe I should. I just like novelty, and I hate routine. And I think I sort of break that routine for myself by embracing or investigating new things. And I think I'm just restless as well. There must be a better way is something that tends to be something that triggers in my brain about, so what would be better? What could we do that's better? And I think those are the things that come to me. So I don't know, it's like with innovation, sometimes you get it wrong, but experiment, you don't know.
Yeah.
And maybe it's just also a little bit of bad reflection on my part. It's like coming on here, for example. I said yes before thinking through what that would mean.
It was a very emphatic and rapid yes as well, you know.
Yeah. So it's like the heart was leading the head, and then the head comes in a bit later and goes, "Oh, really? You got to think of 3 things now. What would those be?" And that took. Yeah, I've still got 6 things written down.
Yeah. Oh, very good. Well, maybe if we do a series called 6 Life Lessons, or we'll get you
I
back
tell
next season.
I'm trying my hardest to squeeze them in.
Yeah. I see. I did notice that you've actually squeezed 2 into your first one there. Innovation and being playful. So that didn't go unnoticed there, but I'll let you get away with it.
Okay.
But anyway,
keep
so
trying.
life lesson number 2, or should we say 3? Number 2. What would you like to share now?
Again, I'm rooting this in work and what has served me well in work, and I think it's about focusing on value. And I think it's easy to again get swept up into the things that are routine, the things that we've always done. But it's so important to understand what your stakeholders value, and I don't mean just the senior people. It's the workers that surround you, the vast majority, and everybody else in your team and every aspect of it. It's like you need to have a strong sense of what those people value, and you have to think very carefully about how you'll evidence that value. And when I was working at NTL, it was the funnest time ever because we were going through the dot-com boom. Money was no object. You could do what you liked. You could spend money like water, and it was fantastic fun. Working in that sort of organisation. There were no controls. You just had to get near somebody with a budget and come up with some great ideas, and they'd go, yeah, give it a go, because it was that sort of startup at massive scale in mentality. And money was sloshing around because they'd got so much funding from venture capital and things like that. Then the bubble burst, and it became the hardest environment to work in because you had to articulate value and say how you're going to provide payback within 6 months. If you wanted to spend any money, capex or opex, you had to have a business case that showed a business return within 6 months. So that makes you very focused. It also removes any politics in the organisation because it creates a very sort of trench mentality. And I really enjoyed that time. The good times were great. The hard times were really cool too, because people had to embrace innovation. But also you had to focus on value, and you'd hunt. I sat down with my team and we'd profile the organisation from CEO down and the board members to say, who are they? What do they value? Who do we know that is an input, a positive input or relationship that those people have that we can pull on? And we drew out a massive web, spent a day doing it, but it helped us all align around who do we need to convince of what value we're driving in what way. And that was really crucial because if you work in organisations, they need to be value centred, but they're also political organisations. So you need to understand how you're creating that momentum around goodwill and good deeds and adding value. So those are the things that I would pick out as being probably the critical things around what drove my corporate success. I'd have been facing the door if I wasn't able to say, this is what we're doing, this is why we're doing it, this is the alternatives, and this is the outcomes that we've created, and this is the evidence I have for the success we created. But I also had a great team, and that makes a hell of an impact on what you're able to deliver as well.
Yeah, that nuanced understanding of stakeholders and what they value. And so that helps you better communicate to them and better engage with them and bring them on board. Then that's a really kind of interesting way. I mean, I've got to admit, somewhat repelled by kind of politics within large organisations, and it's why we have a little company like LAS that we just don't, let you guys get on with the politics. We'll just get on and do the work. But I can see that what you've just described as a way of navigating that politics in a way that actually makes meaning to me, because I'm deeply interested in people. I'm deeply interested in relationships, but I'm really not into that kind of what often comes across as empire building. But perhaps I've never taken the time to truly understand what people value, the different stakeholders.
But I think it's just in some ways it's a bit of a security blanket to understand: am I fitting in here? Are we doing the right things? But also I think it's if you passionately believe in improving the lives of the people around you, why wouldn't you try to influence people with more power than you? I think. And I think it's not that we ever wanted to do the sort of Machiavellian politics of who we're going to rub out, who we're going to take out. It was always, how do we make sure that these people listen to what we say? And the only way they'll listen is if they're interested, and they're only interested if you're helping them. And I think but it was great fun. Again, we used to have a team of us. We do interviews with the directors in the organisation. We'd be stood on tables with handy cams. Somebody would be focused on the eyes, somebody would be focused on the hands, have a back shot. We'd have a guy come in and interview. It was just internal team. And we had a great guy called Mike Levy who'd splice it together. And incredible stuff. And brilliant. And then it becomes a little bit viral. But you're building stronger relationships because you're helping people out, tell their story at a time of immense change. And great fun.
Yeah. Very interesting. So, okay, David, what's your third life lesson that you'd like to share?
Oh, good question. I've got too many.
which from that remain? You must have, by my calculations, 3 remaining, I think. So, which are you going to pick? Or are you going to cram all 3 in?
I'm trying to find a way, because I've said the humankind one. I can put a line through that. We said about innovate. We've done the focus on value. And then let's see. And I've said have fun, so I've done that one.
So you
can't read my handwriting on the other one. So I could go with my bottom one. And this was a piece of life lesson. And this is probably speaking to anybody who works in a corporate, right? I used to work with a Norwegian guy who swore like a trooper. He said it was the thing that Norwegian men did to prove their strength was quality of swearing. And he was very good at swearing in English.
Yeah.
Didn't swear very often in Norwegian. But he gave me a really good piece of advice about working with anything as a buyer, whether you're buying services, advice, whether you're buying software, solution services. He said to me, the thing that you're buying is none of those things. You're buying from that person that you're parting with money, your corporate money, to make you look good. Right? If that person that you're buying services, solutions from isn't making you look good, you failed. So, and that creates some really interesting insight, right? Now, you could think, well, that's not good, is it? Because they're just making you look good. No. It's like they're providing the right outcomes, they're providing the right influence, they're creating the right impression. All these things that create a sense of goodwill and deliver outcomes and value. That's what making you look good is. But it's also knowing when to step back and push you forward, because their success is founded on your navigation of the politics and the organisation and doing well. So I thought it was just a great piece of advice, and I've always applied that. I've always had this sort of dual track whenever I was in corporates, working in them, thinking, okay, your primary job, if you're selling me something, is making me look good. So tell me, how's this going to make me look good? And people sometimes get a bit pushed back by it. It's like, well, I'm not doing that for you. I'm supposed to do it for the organisation. No, I am the organisation. Yeah. If we're succeeding,
I'm
that's
just
good.
part of it.
I'm part of it. But I'm also making you clear that you're not going to jump ahead of me or around me or try and grab any of the limelight. You are going to give me sufficient kudos and respect as well. And maybe that's a bit too Machiavellian. Maybe it is. I don't know. But I thought it was a great piece of advice. It keeps you focused. And one thing I say to vendors, sort of now sitting on the fence, is your job is not just to deliver the software, it's to make the person who signed the contract, make them look good. That's what you have to do. And sometimes they forget that part of the story. They think, we've implemented, I can bugger off now. No. Have you helped them succeed? And that's a piece of advice. So that's a life lesson, maybe.
Yeah, I guess as a vendor, that puts you in for the long haul, doesn't it? Because it's not just about the sort of, it's done now, it's installed, it's set up, but it's actually that it's offering value to the business and doing what it should do and providing all the outcomes that it should do in the longer term as well. So it makes you think a bit more bit more wide in that
so.
initial engagement.
Yeah, I think so. And then if you built up the trust and you've managed to deliver on your promises and you've made that person's career leap on, I wouldn't be surprised if they took them with you on the next adventure.
Yeah.
So it's a win-win, but sometimes it's not that clear.
Yeah.
And that was something I was told in my late 20s that I thought, that's a keeper.
Yeah, that is interesting. From a very sweary Norwegian as well. I mean,
he's a great guy.
I suspect that the Norwegian language, I think, is probably fantastic for swearing in. I would imagine it's got that kind of aspect to it. And Tess is actually she's been learning Norwegian now for I think about 2 or 3 years on Duolingo. So I'll see. I'm not sure what the vocab is on Duolingo, but I'll see if she can bust some out for me.
I don't think they'll do the swearing on Duolingo, which is probably the saddest part of any. So? No, on every part of these language courses, it's not until you learn how to swear that you're probably just about to start to fit in.
That is when you're accepted, as a speaker of a language which isn't your own native language. If you can swear appropriately and kind of and well at the right times, then you get more accepitance there. I think this is
very true. But they do say, I think it helped. I've read again. I'm probably making this up now. This is a bit first, but you live longer and you're happier if you swear more. And that's what my excuse is to my wife and my children quite often. So
that's very interesting. I mean, we're digressing slightly, but kind of where I grew up, like the F word, people use it like other people use basically. It's just everybody swears. That's just how everybody does. Whether people live longer down there, I'm not quite so sure.
That may be a different pattern.
One for another podcast.
Yes.
Well, David, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for sharing those, I think, 5 life lessons.
I've got about 6 in somewhere.
Squeeze the 6th one in somehow. But as ever, always a pleasure. Thank you so much, David Perring. If you've enjoyed learning those 3 life lessons, then make sure that you like, subscribe and follow so that you never miss an episode.